I was 63 years old, and that house had been my sanctuary. I knew every sound it made. The click of the hallway thermostat, the rattle of the kitchen vent, even the floorboard outside my bedroom that creaked whenever someone stepped on it after midnight. My husband, Daniel, had bought the house with me in 1998. We had paid $418,000 for it, renovated the kitchen twice, replaced the roof, and spent years turning the backyard into a garden. When Daniel died, everything passed to me: house, savings, investment accounts, and the responsibility of protecting what we had built. My son Jason had always been my weakness. He was 37, charming when he needed something, and quiet whenever Chloe spoke. Chloe was different. She never asked about my memories. She asked about square footage. She wanted to know what the house was worth. She asked whether the basement was included in the property appraisal. She even once asked me, while stirring sugar into her coffee, whether I had updated my will. I laughed that day. I should not have. 6 months later, Jason called me. "Mom, we need somewhere temporary." His voice sounded nervous. Chloe had supposedly found a new job nearby, and they needed 3 months to get settled. I agreed. They arrived with 2 SUVs, 14 storage containers, a treadmill, a mattress, and enough clothing to suggest they had no intention of staying for 3 months. I welcomed them. That evening, I cooked roast chicken, garlic potatoes, and green beans. The dining room smelled of rosemary and butter. I poured sparkling water into 3 glasses. Then Chloe placed her fork down. "We've been discussing the upstairs." I looked at her. "The upstairs?" "Yes." She smiled. "We're going to turn it into my office and gym." Jason kept eating. I waited. "And where do you expect me to go?" Chloe leaned back. "You can use the guest room." There was a pause. Then she added almost casually, "At this stage of your life, you don't need such a large space." The room went silent. I looked at Jason. He did not defend me. He did not raise his eyes. That was the moment something inside me changed. I did not become angry. I became clear. I smiled. "Of course," I said. Chloe looked surprised. She thought she had won. She had no idea I had just stopped playing by her rules. The next morning, I carried my clothes into the small back room without complaining. Chloe watched from the doorway. "Thank you for understanding," she said. I turned toward her. "Family should make room for family." She smiled. I smiled back. But after she left, I locked my bedroom door and opened my laptop. The first thing I checked was my bank account. The second was my property records. The third was the email account I used for estate matters. Nothing looked wrong. Then I noticed something strange. A message had been deleted from my attorney's folder. The subject line was simple: power of attorney. I called Charles. Charles had represented Daniel and me for almost 20 years. He was 68, precise, impatient with nonsense, and famous for keeping paper copies of everything. "Charles," I said, "did I sign anything recently?" There was a long pause. "No." "Are you sure?" "I am absolutely sure." I lower my voice. "Then why is there a power of attorney with my name on it?" Charles became silent. "Margaret, do not open that document again." "Why?" "Because I need you to preserve it exactly as you found it." I forwarded the file to him. 20 minutes later, he called again. His voice had changed. "That signature is not yours." I stared at the screen. "Who created it?" "I don't know yet. But the document lists Jason as your agent." My fingers went cold. Charles continued. "And it gives him authority over your property, bank accounts, investments, and legal affairs." For several seconds, I could hear only the refrigerator humming. Then I remembered Chloe's questions. The appraisal, the will, the basement, the square footage. Suddenly, every strange conversation had a shape. I asked Charles what I should do. "Nothing dramatic," he said. "Do not confront them. Do not accuse anyone. Do not tell Jason you know. Let me investigate." I agreed. That afternoon, I searched the house while Chloe and Jason were at a restaurant. I discovered the first piece of evidence inside my own office. My filing cabinet was open. Several folders were missing. The drawer containing the original deed had been disturbed. I checked my furniture. My antique writing desk was gone. So was Daniel's leather chair. Then I found a receipt in the trash. The desk had been sold for $1,850. My chair had been sold for $600. Both sales had happened 3 days earlier. I photographed everything. I did not call Jason. I simply opened a new folder on my computer. I named it Evidence. That evening, Chloe came downstairs wearing a cream-colored silk robe and carrying a glass of sparkling wine. "We're having friends over Saturday," she said. "For what?" She laughed. "Just a little housewarming." I looked at her carefully. "Housewarming?" "Yes." Then she smiled. "After all, this is going to be our home." I took one slow breath. "Of course," I said. And for the first time, I knew exactly how this would end. The next morning, I met Charles at his office. He had already pulled the county property records. He placed 3 documents on the desk. The first was my deed. The second was the fraudulent power of attorney. The third was a transfer document. I stared at the third page. It listed Jason as the future owner. My house was valued at $1.86 million. Someone had planned to take it for nothing. Charles adjusted his glasses. "This document has not been recorded yet. Can we stop it?" "Yes." He explained every step. We would revoke every authorization. We would place a fraud notice with the records office. Then we would establish a revocable living trust. I would remain the sole trustee. The property would enter the trust. No one could walk into a bank pretending to represent me. I listened. Then I asked one question. "What about Jason?" Charles looked directly at me. "If he knowingly participated, that becomes a separate matter." I nodded. "Then let him participate." Charles smiled. That afternoon, I signed the documents. The notary verified me. The trust papers were witnessed. The revocation was recorded. Every page was scanned. Every original went into a fireproof box. I also changed the locks. Not because I wanted confrontation. I wanted control. 2 days later, Chloe hosted her party. Luxury cars lined my driveway. Champagne bottles filled the kitchen island. A photographer was there. I stood in the hallway, wearing a navy dress Daniel had bought me. Chloe walked past carrying a crystal glass. "You should probably stay out of the main rooms tonight," she whispered. I smiled. "Why?" She lowered her voice. "Because these are my friends." I looked toward the crowded living room. One woman admired the staircase. Another was asking Chloe about renovations. Chloe lifted her glass. "To new beginnings." Everyone applauded. Then she announced that the house would be renovated. The upstairs would become her private gym. The library would become an office. The guest room would become a nursery. Someone asked where I would live. Chloe laughed. "Oh, Margaret will be comfortable in the guest house." I watched Jason. He stood beside her, silent. Then the doorbell rang. Once. Twice. The room froze. Chloe frowned. Jason walked toward the door. When he opened it, 2 sheriff's deputies stood outside. Behind them was Charles. And beside Charles stood me. Chloe's glass slipped from her hand. It shattered across the marble floor. Charles held up a sealed packet. "Chloe," he said calmly, "this property is not yours." Nobody spoke. He continued. "The alleged power of attorney has been revoked and documented as fraudulent." Jason's face turned pale. Then Charles handed him the notice. "You have 24 hours to vacate the premises." Chloe stared at me. "You did this." I looked at her. "No. I simply protected what was already mine." She had nothing to say. I walked past her and into my own home. The party was over, and so was their control over my life.